A minute and a half before federal agents shot Alex Pretti, multiple cameras captured him doing something. He was holding up his phone, recording. Not a gun, a phone. 28 seconds before the shooting, video shows an agent removing what appears to be Pretti's firearm from him. 1 second later, another agent opens fire. 10 shots, less than 5 seconds. But here's what the Department of Homeland Security said within hours. Alex Pretti approached officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and attacked agents. Secretary Kristi Noem went further. She called him a domestic terrorist who arrived to inflict maximum damage and kill law enforcement. This happened in Minneapolis on January 24th. It was the second time in 3 weeks that federal agents shot and killed an American citizen in that city, and it was the second time that what officials said happened didn't match what the cameras showed. I'm Daniel Crawford, and today we're examining a pattern that raises serious questions about transparency, accountability, and the gap between official narratives and documented evidence. To understand what's happening in Minneapolis, you need to know 3 things. First, on January 6th, the Department of Homeland Security announced what it called the largest immigration enforcement operation ever conducted. 2,000 federal agents, ICE, Border Patrol, Homeland Security investigations, deployed to the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area. Second, this wasn't just about immigration enforcement. According to local officials, it represented a fundamental shift in tactics. Eyewitnesses and residents described it as unlike anything they'd experienced before. Third, since September 2025, ICE agents have opened fire on people 9 times across 5 states and Washington, D.C. 4 people have died in these federal deportation operations. Minneapolis became ground zero for this enforcement surge. And in 3 weeks, 2 American citizens, both 37 years old, both observers of ICE operations, both shot by federal agents, died on Minneapolis streets. Their names: Renée Good, killed January 7th, Alex Pretti, killed January 24th. In both cases, federal officials immediately defended the shootings as self-defense. In both cases, they blamed the victims. And in both cases, video evidence contradicted key elements of those official accounts. Let's look at what actually happened. January 7, 2026. Morning. A residential street in South Minneapolis. Renée Good, a 37-year-old mother of 3, was observing an ICE operation with her wife, Becca. They were U.S. citizens. They were recording the agents on their phones. Good's burgundy SUV was stopped perpendicular in the street. ICE agent Jonathan Ross, a 10-year veteran, approached the vehicle. He was also recording on his phone. Multiple videos captured what happened next, including one from Ross himself that later surfaced. The video shows Ross circling Good's vehicle. Good speaks to him through her open driver's side window. "That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you," she says, one hand on the steering wheel, the other outside the window. Her wife stands outside the passenger side, also recording. "U.S. citizen, former veteran," she says to Ross. Then another agent approaches, reaches through the window, orders Good to get out. Good's vehicle begins to move, first in reverse a few feet, then forward. Ross fires 3 shots. Good crashes into a parked car. Responders find gunshot wounds to her chest, left forearm, and head. She dies approximately 1 hour later. Within hours, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem holds a press conference. She says Good ignored commands and tried to run over an immigration and customs enforcement officer in an attempt to kill or cause bodily harm to agents. She says the officer was struck by the vehicle and treated at a hospital. But here's where the official account meets the video evidence. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey watched the videos. His assessment: "Having seen the video myself, I want to tell everybody directly that is bullshit." Policing experts who reviewed the footage noted something crucial. Ross was holding a gun in one hand and a cell phone in the other, filming as he approached the vehicle. Professor John P. Gross from the University of Wisconsin Law School, who has written extensively about officers shooting at moving vehicles, said, "If you are an officer who views this woman as a threat, you don't have one hand on a cell phone. You don't walk around this supposed weapon casually filming." The video shows Ross firing as Good's vehicle was turning away from him, not toward him. The claim that she attempted to run him over? Disputed by multiple video angles analyzed by major news organizations. 17 days later, Saturday morning, January 24th, the intersection of 26th Street and Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis's Whittier neighborhood. Alex Pretti was a 37-year-old intensive care nurse at the Minneapolis VA hospital. He had a legal permit to carry a concealed weapon. He had participated in protests after George Floyd's death in 2020. That morning, he was doing what Renée Good had done, observing a federal immigration operation, recording it on his phone. Multiple cameras captured what happened over the next 3 minutes. At 9:41 a.m., a federal agent shoves 2 individuals, legal observers wearing identification, pushing one toward traffic. Pretti continues recording. At 9:44 a.m., one of those individuals appears to grab onto Pretti as the federal agent approaches. At 9:46 a.m., an agent pepper sprays Pretti. What happens next is critical, and it's captured on multiple verified videos. Pretti moves to help a woman who has been pushed to the ground by agents. He wraps his arms around her. An agent shoves him. They fall to the street together. Several agents wrestle Pretti onto the pavement. Around 6 agents surround him. Video shows one agent repeatedly hitting him. Then, and this is documented in footage verified by Reuters, the BBC, the Wall Street Journal, and the Associated Press, one agent emerges from the struggle. He's holding a handgun that appears to match Pretti's weapon. He moves away from Pretti. Approximately 1 second later, another agent draws his own handgun and fires. 10 shots, less than 5 seconds according to forensic audio analysis. Alex Pretti is declared dead at the scene. Now here's what federal officials said. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson stated that Pretti approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and attacked officers. Secretary Noem said Pretti arrived at the scene to inflict maximum damage on individuals and to kill law enforcement. She called his actions domestic terrorism. Gregory Bovino, the Border Patrol commander on scene, claimed Pretti planned to massacre federal agents. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller called Pretti a would-be assassin, but according to the verified video evidence analyzed by multiple news organizations, 1. Pretti was recording with his phone, not brandishing a weapon, in the minutes before the shooting. 2. An agent removed Pretti's gun from him before another agent opened fire. 3. At the time shots were fired, Pretti was pinned on the ground by multiple agents, being struck by at least one of them. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara confirmed Pretti had a lawful permit to carry. There is no verified evidence showing Pretti brandishing his handgun at any point during the encounter. Pretti's parents, Michael and Susan, released a statement through the Minnesota DFL. They called the federal government's account lies that are sickening and reprehensible. Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked, they said. He has his phone in his right hand and his empty left hand is raised above his head while trying to protect the woman. Ice just pushed down, all while being pepper sprayed. Here's where this story takes an interesting turn. According to CBS News, these sweeping categorical statements by senior Trump administration officials, made before full investigations began, have caused internal frustration within DHS itself. A Homeland Security official who works on immigration enforcement told CBS, "When we gaslight and contradict what the public can plainly see with their own eyes, we lose all credibility, and it's going to damage our reputation for generations." Another DHS source expressed concern about self-inflicted reputational harm caused by the strong language used by top officials following Pretti's killing. This isn't just coming from critics of the administration. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy from Louisiana posted on social media that the credibility of ICE and DHS are at stake. He called for a full joint federal and state investigation, adding, "We can trust the American people with the truth." Even Chris Mantle, a Republican lawyer who previously represented ICE agent Jonathan Ross in the Renée Good case, announced he was withdrawing from the 2026 Minnesota gubernatorial race. He said he could not support the Republican Party for what he called retribution and blamed national Republicans for the handling of these cases. The investigation process itself is raising questions. FBI Director Kash Patel announced that ICE's Homeland Security Investigations Branch would lead the investigation into the Pretti shooting. Current and former agency officials called this highly unusual. Instead of an outside entity investigating, ICE would be examining the actions of another DHS component, Border Patrol. Minnesota state officials obtained a search warrant for the shooting scene. Federal investigators refused access. A federal judge had to issue an order blocking DHS from destroying or altering evidence. Deputy U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche defended the agents on NBC's Meet the Press, calling it an incredibly split-second decision in a very complicated, violent situation. But policing experts who reviewed the videos had questions. Professor Jeff Alpert from the University of South Carolina noted that Ross was filming with his phone while holding his service weapon during the Good shooting. I want to see the officer training that permits that. The pattern is clear. Rapid public statements defending agents, claims contradicted by video evidence, and resistance to independent investigation. So what does this mean? First, it demonstrates the power and the problem of video evidence in the digital age. Citizens are documenting law enforcement actions. News organizations are conducting frame-by-frame forensic analysis. What officials say happened and what cameras show happened are increasingly subject to public scrutiny. When those accounts don't match, trust erodes. Second, these cases raise fundamental questions about use of force policies for federal agents conducting immigration operations. Since September 2025, there have been 9 ICE-involved shootings. That's a notable increase. Congress is taking notice. Representative Delia Ramirez and Representative Seth Magaziner have co-sponsored the DHS Use of Force Oversight Act to establish baseline policies. The question being asked, what are the rules of engagement for these operations? Third, there's the question of accountability. When state authorities are blocked from investigating federal shootings on their streets, when federal agencies investigate themselves, when evidence preservation requires court orders, that creates a transparency problem. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, and Governor Tim Walz have all called for ICE to leave the state. Walz activated the National Guard to help maintain public safety amid protests. Senator Amy Klobuchar told Meet the Press, "Law enforcement is based on trust, and we have had a total breakdown of trust. They are making us less safe, not more safe." Fourth, both victims were American citizens. Both were observers, not targets of immigration enforcement. Both were recording agents. Both were shot while local officials say they posed no threat. That raises civil liberties concerns that cross partisan lines, which is why you're seeing criticism from both Democrats and Republicans, including pro-Second Amendment groups, questioning why a legal gun owner was shot after his weapon was removed. The Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus called for a full and transparent investigation. Let me be clear about what we know and what we don't. We know what the videos show, multiple angles verified by major news organizations, analyzed by law enforcement experts and forensic audio specialists. We know what federal officials said within hours of both shootings. We know those accounts don't align. What we don't know is the complete picture. Investigations are ongoing. There may be evidence not yet public that explains these discrepancies. But here's what concerns me as someone who has covered law enforcement for decades. When officials make categorical statements before investigations are complete, they stake their credibility on those statements. When video evidence then contradicts those statements, it doesn't just undermine that specific case. It undermines public trust in the institution. Every law enforcement agency, local, state, or federal, depends on public trust to function effectively. That trust is built slowly and lost quickly. Right now, in Minneapolis, that trust is broken. 2 families are grieving. 2 American citizens are dead. Video evidence raises serious questions about what really happened in both cases. The public deserves answers based on thorough, transparent, independent investigations, not rapid statements designed to justify actions before the facts are fully known. This isn't about being pro-ICE or anti-ICE. This isn't about immigration policy. This is about a principle that should unite everyone. When the government uses lethal force against American citizens, the full truth must come out. The cameras were rolling. The evidence exists. The question is whether the system will follow where that evidence leads, even when it's uncomfortable. I'm Daniel Crawford. Thanks for watching.